Welcome to Agree to Disagree, the podcast where two sisters show how you can disagree about everything but still keep that family bond and friendship.
That's right. We're Sharon and Karen, and we don't just see the world differently, we live it differently. Grab a coffee, settle in, and enjoy the conversation. Who knows? You might even find yourself changing sides.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm Sharon from Texas, by the way.
Well, no, I think we were ready to do that, but I'm Karen from Morocco. I was just saying hello.
Hello. What are we? Are we talking about who to trust today?
Who do you trust?
Who can we trust?
Who can you trust
Who can we
in
trust?
media?
Yeah, who can we trust?
Did you do a
In
lot of
the
research on
media.
this?
I did.
I did a little bit.
I have a lot of statistics, which are kind of interesting. Some of them are like, oh, well, of course, that's like typical just because of who you talk to and you know, the general sentiment out there. But some of it's kind of interesting, the timing of stuff that happens.
I can't wait to hear your statistics.
Right. Okay. So today's topic was on who can we trust in the media.
In the media specifically, right?
Specifically in the media. And I think for you and I, this has become a topic to discuss because in our first podcast that we have published, we tend to question each other's source of information, which we knew was going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. We knew that going into, and when we first started talking about this podcast, we knew that was going to happen. So it makes sense that we have this as a topic, especially that we're newer in doing the podcast and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to the reason that we wanted to do this is because we wanted people to start being able to have everyday conversations. And I think this is an everyday conversation because you come at someone and have a disagreement. It's like, well, where did you get your information? You know, which goes back to who do you trust? And
who do you trust?
Who can you trust?
Right.
So I did some research
definitely.
too, so you can hit me.
So let's talk about that. Where did you get your research from? Like what sources were your research from?
I was looking primarily to try to find statistics on what percentage of Republicans and Democrats trust the media, what happened after certain events. Did trust go down? How much did it go down? I went to Pew Research.
Okay, that's where I got some of mine too.
Okay, then we should definitely be on the same page with what we're talking about. I think the reasoning behind it may be a little bit different. But I also had, in listening to a couple of podcasts with a couple of experts. One was a journalist. I fell in love with this woman. I'd never heard of her before. And now I'm like all over her, like, wow, she is so flippin' smart. It just blew me away. And her take on everything, it was amazing. I'll talk more about her later, but she blew me away with some of the things that she said. And I was just like, wow.
Okay. So you and I got a lot of our information today from the Pew Research Center.
Yes.
It sounds like. And then also I have some stats from and research from Gallup.
Yeah, I looked at Gallup a little bit. Some of the information I have is from Gallup polls as well. As long as we're not coming at each other with, I saw this on Fox News and I saw this on MSNBC. I think that we're okay.
We're not. I think we're okay. Yeah. The other thing, one of the reasons I went to Pew Research Center is because when I was researching, before we ever started our podcast, I was researching about publications that you could trust.
Yeah.
Media publications you could trust. I ended up at the Pew Research Center, who routinely puts out reports and studies on which media publications are the most unbiased.
What did they say?
They actually said the top two.
PBS is one of them, isn't it?
It is, but it's not top of the list.
Is it AP?
It's in the top. It's AP is the top. And then, and I'm going to mispronounce it because I'm horrible at pronunciation. It's
pronunciation
or pronunciation. It's Reuters. I knew I was pronouncing it wrong. That's the other one. Those are the top two. They said the AP over the last maybe 5 to 10 years has started to lean just a little bit left, but not so much that you can't like get through an article and, you're getting the majority of the...
Yeah, because the AP is where a lot of news organizations get their news. So they're more about putting out facts and letting...
Just facts.
Yeah, just facts.
They're not
They're not commentary. They're not giving commentary. But the AP was just banned from the White House.
Yes, I saw that when I was researching. I saw that, but I didn't dive into it. Because
you don't know why it was banned? I'll tell you why it was banned.
I assume it was banned because probably somebody in the executive branch just doesn't like something that they said.
We won't name names. No, it was banned specifically. The reason that they gave was it was banned because they refused to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. They refused to refer to it as Gulf of America in their reporting.
Freaking ridiculous.
So they banned them.
Freaking ridiculous.
And there was actually, you bring up the AP, the correspondent, they banned them from having an office, I think, in the White House. I don't think they banned them from attending the
press conferences and things like that. Yeah.
That would be concerning. Banning and getting rid of the office.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think it's great.
You're not given a space.
But
you're not given a space. But you're still
able to attend the
press conferences and ask questions, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
But the AP journalist got attacked by the press secretary the other day for asking about tariffs, and she was like, "How dare you criticize my knowledge of tariffs or my knowledge of the economy?" And he's like, "I'm just telling you what the information is. I'm not getting you anything." But it was really...
And that was verbally attacked, not physically attacked. Let's just be very clear.
Yes. It's like, how dare you come at me with a question and expect me to be able to...
But so what's really interesting, and I think you probably found this in some of your research if you did go through Pew, Republicans actually want more freedom of the press than Democrats do.
I didn't see that, but that doesn't surprise me because one thing I found was that Republicans distrust the press a lot more than...
Oh, absolutely.
So why do you think that is?
Why do I think Republicans distrust the media more?
Yes.
Because if you look at the research from Gallup, it's interesting when you look at just the Republicans versus Democrats versus independents. There was a sharp decline in 1996, a sharp decline across all three of those.
And what did they attribute that to? I didn't go back to 1996.
There was a great decline in 1996. And then of course, another sharp decline in 2016. Another switch.
So why do you think, not just the switch in parties, I don't think you can attribute that to a switch in parties. What started happening in 2016? Because Trump came out and said verbatim, don't trust the media. You cannot trust that it's fake news, that it's a war.
He's called it fake news.
Yeah,
yes,
and that had a huge impact on people's trust for media. And that is but how do you feel about that as a president? And I'm not even talking about just Trump.
Let me tell you how I feel. Because, and at the same time that he did that, yes, Republicans fell drastically in 2016 trusting because that's the message we were hearing. Okay. However, the Democrats, sharp increase, 25-point increase, because they're going to go opposite of whatever's being said by that man.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's the point. That's the point.
No, and I think it's on both sides. Yes, it's on both sides.
On both sides. It's on both sides.
But the Gallup found that by 2021, trust in media among Republicans hit an all-time low of 10%.
Absolutely.
10%. Yes. Trust among Democrats was at 68%. Democrats trusted media. This is from Gallup. 2021, trust among Democrats remained much higher at 68% by 2021. Now, and I think this goes directly to what you were saying is because Trump was in office and he was telling people, his party, people that were following him, don't trust the media. And at the same time, you had the left-leaning media going out, the liberal media, and going out and just attacking Trump and attacking all these policies. And Democrats were probably more likely to believe everything that they were hearing on left-leaning liberal media.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But my stats say 54%.
Well, 54%, that's still very high compared to 10. So there is is a difference.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but I think
absolutely.
the difference in that is from you have the head of the party and the president of the United States. I'm not talking about people. I'm talking about the head of the party. I'm talking about politics.
It wasn't just him.
If you have the head of the party telling you that you cannot trust the media, and he's telling you while he's using the media to get that message across, but he's telling you, if you hear your president say something, regardless of what party he's in, if you hear your president directly say something, you're going to be more likely to believe him. And I think that was extremely dangerous and not helpful for anyone.
But what you just said is not true when you look at the numbers, because half this country are Democrats and they were hearing the same message from him and they went completely opposite and just said, no, you're false, and I believe everything.
I said if it's your party, if the person that you believe in, if Biden had come out and said, do not trust the media, you cannot trust them, they are fake news. If Biden had done the same thing that Trump did, Democrats would have lost faith in the media and Republicans would have shot up their trust in the media. If you just flip the parties, and I'm not saying this is about Trump personally, this is about the president of the United States saying you cannot trust our democratic journalistic process. You cannot trust our media at all. Not at all. Everything they say is a lie. I am the only one that tells you the truth. That is a dangerous, dangerous message, and it hurt the entire population's belief in the media a little bit, but it desperately hurt the people that follow him and look to him and trusted him. You said yourself you trusted what he says.
That I trust everything he says?
Not everything, but you trust in general. You trust and you believe what he says.
Not everything.
Not everything, but you believe some things. And when you have the head of a party, someone at the top like that saying, don't believe the media and don't even believe your eyes, don't even believe what you see, I think that it sows that mistrust. What did I read? That his presidency did supercharge this issue of mistrust in the media. He did it by saying that it's fake news, that whatever you see that he disagrees with is fake news. The liberal media didn't help because they overtly were anti-Trump. They stopped reporting on facts and started reporting on twisting.
I 100% agree with you.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm being fair here because it's true.
You are.
Everything that they did they didn't take the reality and they twisted it to make it just be anti-Trump.
And I 100% agree with you that was what caused the decline in 2016 was that messaging.
Yes.
I agree.
It's the messaging, not the person, the messaging.
But I also do think that it wasn't just him putting that message out.
No, it wasn't just him. Distrust had been in decline for decades. And I know
that's the other thing. I went back all the way to, because there was a Gallup poll, they started this way back in the 80s, right?
Right.
And there has been a steady decline. It was earlier than that. A steady decline in the media. Now, did you find the research in the Pew on journalists being asked the question, U.S. journalists, there were like 1,100, 1,200 U.S. journalists being asked the question of what's the number one thing best that the current U.S. media does, and what's the number one thing worse that they do?
No, what did it say?
It said 23% of journalists said the best thing that they do is getting the news out, just publishing. 23%, the worst job that the media does today is getting the story right. And that was the largest percentage. And then you start going down in percentages on different categories. Right under that, then says 20% says the worst job they do is being unbiased. So you have 23% and 20% saying the content, 43% are saying the content, it being correct and accurate and it being unbiased is the worst.
Well, yeah, because I saw a lot that said
saying that. That's journalists saying that.
Well, and I think a big part of that goes to the fact that journalists are up against deadlines that are unrealistic because of social media. Everything has to be done in a split second. So I don't think that they have the time that they used to have to fact check and to get the information right and accurate. So they have a tendency, I'm not saying that they shouldn't, I'm saying this is what has happened. Because they want to get things out so fast, they don't take the time to check facts. They just throw the information out there. And then if it's wrong, they go back back later and they correct themselves. But I did see something.
I don't know about that.
That said mistakes are made, but corrections are public, at least with mainstream media. Every major news outlet issues corrections when they get the facts wrong. Typically, they do. And the difference between legitimate media and actual disinformation sources is that real journalists admit mistakes. Now, this is something I'm not sure that I've ever seen on Fox News.
I've never seen it on CNN either.
So the sources that I saw that are still reliable, Associated Press, Reuters, and PBS. I do think that PBS does a good job because I watch a lot of PBS still. And I think they do a good job of either presenting both sides or just presenting facts. They don't give a lot of commentary. And when they give commentary, it's both sides. I used to listen
to a lot of PBS radio. I used to. I haven't in years just because I'm not in the car anymore.
But I think it's also if you listen to the news hour instead of the commentators. Like if you're listening to a commentator show. Because another problem was the rise in not only right-wing alternative media, but left-wing as well. And so then you get stuck in these bubbles where it's just people reporting their view on the news instead of just reporting the news.
Right. It's all the opinions, which is exactly what our podcast is about, or our opinions.
Exactly. Well, we're talking about how our opinions are wonderful.
But this is one thing that's kind of interesting, though. I don't know if you saw this in the Gallup stuff that you were reading, but I found this kind of interesting too, is that not only has there been a steady decline in the last 25 years of trust in media, but the age groups. Do you see the age groups that are the lowest? The age groups that are the lowest, which both of them are 26%, is the age group of 18 to 29 and 30 to 49.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me because I think like our
Do you think because of the social media?
Yeah,
do you
absolutely.
think it has something to do with social media?
I did see that social media spreads disinformation. Well, we all know that. Spreads more disinformation than mainstream media. Mainstream media still, for the most part, I mean, my husband and I talked about this, and he is very distrustful of media. But he was making the point, he's like, you know, when you watch mainstream media, I
love him more and more.
I know. He said, if you watch mainstream media, if you don't have background knowledge of the history around the event that they're talking about, then you can't watch it intelligently because you don't really understand the context. And I heard this on the podcast I was talking about that mainstream media, they talk at very high levels and people don't necessarily understand what they're saying. Like if they were reporting on, the G7 met today, how many people know who's in the G7, what it is, why it's meeting, what its purpose is.
Right.
They don't know. So they're talking at a level of
and a lot of people don't. And a lot of people won't do the research and won't dive in.
Right.
They just take it at face value.
Right.
Because like you said earlier, whether it is, and the president of a country is listened to.
Yes.
So they do have influence. So they're just going to take it at face value and not do the research, right? I mean, others will do the research. And I do that with my husband all the time. He'll just send me something or say something to me that he heard or saw on social media. And I will literally say, did you check that?
Yeah.
Did you fact check it?
Yeah.
He's like, well, no, I don't need to. I said, yes, we need to fact check. And there have been times where I will go and do the research and I will fact check it. And then I will come back to him and I'm like, so that's not actually true.
Right.
This is what actually happened.
And you'll be happy to hear, like, I've started doing this a lot more with even the left-leaning media. Because again, being a Democrat, I'm in that 56% or whatever you saw that I generally trusted the media.
You just trust the media.
Trust. I get a lot of, I don't watch the news a lot. I mean, I will sit down and watch it occasionally.
I don't watch the news at all.
But I get a lot. Well, I have something to say about that too.
Which makes sense because I don't trust it.
Because you don't trust it.
But that's not why. That's not why I stopped watching the news. I stopped watching the news probably, I would say 15 to 20 years ago. And the reason that I did was because of the constant stream in the news of negativity. It was so
negativity.
Sensationalized, and it's all negative. And I just didn't want to be bombarded with that negativity over and over. I just couldn't. I mean, there were times where my husband would have it on, and I would literally have to leave the room because I was having such a visceral reaction, and it was putting me in a bad mood. because of all the anger and
well,
the
that's just it. I
negativity.
would say that if you watch right-leaning media, yes, it's all about
no. It can do it
anger
when I'm listening to left wing.
Fear
No.
and left wing. I don't see it as angry.
Left wing.
I don't see it as angry.
When I switch it to left wing media, I have the same response to left wing media. Same response.
More than occasionally, we will switch it to Fox. I mean, every time we're sitting down and watching the news, if we're watching CNN, 9 times out of 10, we will also switch it to Fox just to see what they're saying. Because Fox at times, I mean, one thing I will give Fox, sometimes they do a better job of reporting actual news, like the facts, occasionally. But
that's not very often.
It depends on if you take out the commentary. I'm not talking about commentary. I'm talking about just reporting the news.
Just the news. Yeah.
But when you get to the commentary, it is so aggressively fearful and the end of the world is coming and they're coming for you. And it's just, I mean.
But I've seen that on the left-winged media as well.
I don't see it near as much.
I agree with you.
I don't see it near as much.
I totally agree with you about the right-wing media, that it is very heightened and angry and, but I've seen it on the left side. Well, so let's break that down a little bit. Here's my opinion of why it may be more so on the right side media than on the left side media, because there's a lot more left side media establishments.
I don't think that. I don't believe that.
Oh, there are.
No, my take on it is that I think they're doing it because they know it's more effective. It's way more effective and it gets way more ratings and it gets their message across a lot better. You have to admit the right side is much better at messaging and getting their people riled up, I think. But of course, every
because
left
the left side is so confused right now. They don't know which
Not
way
just
to go.
right
they
now.
Don't have
They have been confused for decades. They've got their head up their butt and they don't know what they're doing. I'm the first to admit that. They are so I think they can't. Yeah, beyond.
They just cannot.
No, they can't. They can't.
If they could get their philosophy cemented and solidified, then I think they could go with it, right?
No,
But
they've got so many problems. Yeah, it's so bad. I mean, it's ridiculously bad. Yeah.
So
but one thing I saw that I did want to say to you, I heard this quote from this woman. Her name's
who's this woman?
Maria. Her name is Maria Ressa, and she is a professor at Columbia University. She's a Nobel Peace Prize winner. She's a journalist and an activist out of the Philippines. She was an activist against Duterte government in Philippines. She's been arrested and jailed many times, and they went after her for tax evasion just to shut her up. But she is so flippin' smart. And she said, if you become an ostrich and avoid the news, you lose the rights for your kids.
Are you calling me a freaking ostrich?
I'm just saying.
That's what you just
I'm
said.
just saying.
You just called me an ostrich.
That's what you took out of that. Out of that whole statement, that's the only piece of information you took.
That's it for part 1. We scratched the surface, but there's so much more to uncover. Next week in part 2, we'll dive deeper into the media's influence, bias, and how to tell who's really telling the truth. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Until then, stay sharp, stay informed, and as always, think for yourself.
That wraps up today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a rating and review. It helps us improve and get the word out.
Reach out to us on Facebook and Instagram or shoot us an email at agreetodisagree@gmail.com.
Let us know what you think, what topics you'd like us to cover, or any questions you might have. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.